Hello and welcome to part 9 of our read aloud of Roald Dahl's The Witches. When we left off at part 8, our narrator had been turned into a mouse. Now he was able to meet up with Bruno, who had also been turned into a mouse by the Grand High Witch. They got out of the ballroom safely, and they have made it all the way back up to the narrator's grandmother's room, got her to let him in, and she was just completely aghast at what had happened. She felt so bad for allowing it, but our narrator comforted her, saying, it's okay, I don't feel particularly bad, everything's fine. And then she was like, oh, it must have been a witch in the hotel. And when the narrator said it wasn't just one, it was all of them, and the Grand High Witch, the grandmother was like, wait, you mean their meeting was here? And then he said, a little glint of excitement crept into her eyes. She said, when we left off, tell me everything. I took a deep breath and began to talk. I told all about going to the ballroom and hiding behind the screen to do my mouse training. I told about the notice saying Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I told all about the women coming in and sitting down and about the small woman who appeared on the stage and took off her mask. But when it came to describing what her face looked like underneath the mask, I simply couldn't find the right words. It was horrible, Grandmama. Oh, it was so horrible. It was like something that was rotten and it was just decaying right there. Go on, my grandmother said. Don't stop. Then I told her all about the others taking off their wigs and their gloves and their shoes, and how I saw before me a sea of bald, pimply heads, and how the women's fingers had little claws and how their feet had no toes. My grandmother had come forward now in her armchair so that she was sitting right on the edge of it. Both her hands were cupped over the gold knob of the stick that she always used when walking, and she was staring at me with eyes as bright as 2 stars. Then I told her how the Grand High Witch had shot out the fiery white hot sparks, and how they turned one of the other witches into a puff of smoke. I've heard about that, my grandmother cried out excitedly, but I've never quite believed it. I believe you are the first non-witch ever to see it happening. It is the Grand High Witch's most famous punishment. It's known as getting fried, and all the other witches are petrified of having it done to them. I'm told the Grand High Witch makes it a rule to fry at least one witch at an annual meeting, in order to keep the rest of them on their toes. But they don't have toes, Grandmama. I know they don't, my darling. It's a figure of speech, but please go on. So then I told my grandmother about the delayed action mouse maker, and when I came to the bit about turning all the children of England into mice, she actually leapt out of her chair shouting, I knew it! I knew they were brewing up something big. We've got to stop them. But she just turned and stared at me. You can't stop witches. Just look at the power that terrible Grand High Witch has in her eyes alone. She could kill any of us at any time with those white hot sparks of hers. You saw it yourself. Even so, Grandmama, we've still got to stop her from turning all the children of England into mice. You haven't quite finished. Tell me about Bruno. How did they get him? So I described how Bruno Jenkins had come in, and how I had actually seen him with my own eyes being shrunk into a mouse. My grandmother looked at Bruno, who was guzzling away in the bowl of bananas. Does he ever stop eating? Never. Can you explain something to me, though, Grandmama? I'll try. She reached out and lifted me off the table and put me on her lap. Very gently, she began stroking the soft fur along my back. It felt nice. What is it you wanted to ask me, my darling? Well, the thing I don't understand is how Bruno and I are still able to talk and think just as we did before. Well, that's quite simple. All they've done is shrink you, give you 4 legs and a furry coat. They haven't been able to change you into a 100% mouse. You are still yourself in everything except your appearance. You've still got your own mind and your own brain and your own voice, and thank goodness for that. So, I'm not really an ordinary mouse at all? I'm sort of a mouse person? Quite right. You're a human in mouse's clothing. You are very special. We sat there in silence for a few moments while my grandmother went on stroking me very gently with one finger and puffing her cigar with the other hand. The only sound in the room was made by Bruno as he attacked the bananas in the bowl. But I wasn't doing nothing as I lay there on her lap. I was thinking like mad. My brain was whirring as it had never whirred before. Grandmama, I may have a bit of an idea. Yes, my darling, what is it? The Grand High Witch told them her room number is 454, right? That's right. Well, my room number is 554. If mine 554 is on the 5th floor, then hers 454 will be on the 4th floor. That's correct. Then don't you think it's possible that room 454 is directly underneath room 554? Well, that's more than likely. These modern hotels are all built like boxes of bricks, but what if it is? Would you please take me out on my balcony so I can look down? All the rooms in the Hotel Magnificent had small private balconies. My grandmother carried me through into my own bedroom and out onto my balcony. We both peered down to the balcony immediately below. Now, if that is her room, then I'll bet I could climb down there somehow and get in. And get caught all over again, my grandmother said. I won't allow it. At this moment, all the witches are down on the Sunshine Terrace having tea with the manager. The Grand High Witch probably won't be back until 6 o'clock or just before. That's when she's going to dish out supplies of that foul formula to the ancient ones who are too old to climb trees after Gruntel's eggs. And what if you did manage to get into her room? What then? Well, then I should try to find the place where she keeps the mouse maker. And if I succeed, then I could steal a bottle of it and bring it back here. Could you even carry it? I think so. It's a small bottle. I'm frightened of that stuff, my grandmother said. What would you even do with it if you did manage to get one? Well, she said one bottle is enough for 500 people. That would give each and every witch down there a double dose at least. We could turn them all into mice. My grandmother jumped about an inch in the air. We were out on my balcony and there was a drop of about 1,000,000 feet below us, and I very nearly bounced out of her hand over the railings when she jumped. Hey, be careful with me, Grandmama. What an idea, she cried. It's fantastic. It's tremendous. You're a genius, my darling. Wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't that really be something? We'd get rid of every witch in England in one swoop, and the Grand High Witch in the bargain. We've got to try. Listen, she said, nearly dropping me over the balcony once again in her excitement. If we brought this off, it would be the greatest triumph in the whole history of witchery. Well, there's a lot of work to do. Of course there's a lot of work to do. Just for a start, supposing you did manage to get hold of one of those bottles, how would you get it into their food? We'll work that out later. Let's just try to get the stuff first. How can we find out for sure if that's really her room just below us? We shall check it out immediately. Come along. There's not a second to waste. Carrying me in one hand, she went bustling out of the bedroom and along the corridor, banging her stick on the carpet with each step she took. We went down the stairs one flight to the 4th floor. The bedrooms on either side of the corridor had their numbers painted on the doors in gold. Here it is, my grandmother said, number 454. She tried the door, but it was locked, of course. She looked up and down the long, empty hotel corridor. I do believe you're right. This room is almost certainly directly below yours. She marched back along the corridor, counting the number of doors from the Grand High Witch's room to the staircase. There were 6. She climbed back up to the 5th floor and repeated the exercise. 6 again. She is directly below you. That is her room right below yours. She carried me back into my own bedroom and went out once again onto the balcony. That's her balcony down there, and what's more, look, the door from her balcony onto her bedroom is wide open. But how are you going to climb down? I don't know, I said. Our rooms were in the front of the hotel, and they looked down onto the beach and the sea. Immediately below my balcony, what seemed like thousands of feet below, I could see a fence of spiked railings. If I fell, I'd be a goner. I've got it, my grandmother cried. With me in her hand, she rushed back into her own room and began rummaging in the chest of drawers. She came out with a ball of blue knitting wool. One end of it was attached to some needles and a half-finished sock she had been knitting for me. This is perfect. I'll put you in the sock and lower you down onto the Grand High Witch's balcony. We must hurry, though. Any moment now, that monster will be returning to her room. My grandmother hustled me back into my own bedroom and out onto the balcony. Are you ready? I'm going to put you in the sock now. I hope I can manage this. I'm only a little mouse after all. You'll manage. And good luck, my darling. She popped me into the sock and started lowering me over the balcony. I crouched inside and held my breath. Through the stitches, I could see out quite clearly. Miles below me, the children playing on the beach were the size of beetles. The sock started swinging in the breeze. I looked up and saw my grandmother's head sticking out over the railing of the balcony above. You're nearly there, she called out. Here we go. Gently does it. And you're down. I felt a slight bump. In you go now, my grandmother was shouting. Hurry, 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 search the room. I jumped out of the sock and ran into the Grand High Witch's bedroom. There was the same musty smell about the place that I had noticed in the ballroom. It was the stench of witches. It reminded me of the smell inside the men's public bathroom at our local railway station. As far as I could see, the room was tidy enough. There was no sign anywhere that it was inhabited by anyone but an ordinary person. But then there wouldn't be, would there? No witch would be stupid enough to leave anything suspicious lying around for the hotel maid to see. Suddenly I saw a frog jumping across the carpet and disappearing under the bed. I jumped myself. "Hurry up," came my grandmother's voice from somewhere high up outside. "Grab the stuff and get out." I started skittering around trying to search the room. This wasn't so easy. I couldn't, for example, open any of the drawers. I couldn't open the doors of the big wardrobe either. So I stopped skittering about, and I sat in the middle of the floor and had a think. If the Grand High Witch wanted to hide something top secret, where would she put it? Certainly not in any ordinary chest of drawers. Not in the wardrobe either. It was too obvious. I jumped up on the bed to get a better view of the room. Hey, I thought, what about under the mattress? Very carefully, I lowered myself down over the edge of the bed and wormed my way underneath the mattress. I had to push forward hard to make any headway, but I kept at it. I couldn't see a thing. I was scrabbling about under the mattress when my head suddenly bumped against something hard inside the mattress above me. I reached up and felt it with my paw. Could it be a little bottle? It was! I could trace the shape of it through the cloth of the mattress, and right alongside it I felt another hard lump, and another, and another. The Grand High Witch must have slid open the mattress, put the bottles inside, and then sewn it all up again. I began tearing away frantically at the mattress cloth above my head with my teeth. My front teeth were extremely sharp, and it didn't take me long to make a small hole. I climbed in and grabbed a bottle by the neck. I pushed it down through the hole in the mattress and climbed out after it. By walking backwards and dragging the bottle behind me, I managed to reach the edge of the mattress. I rolled the bottle off the bed onto the carpet, and it bounced but didn't break. I jumped down off the bed. As I examined the little bottle, I saw it was identical to the one the Grand High Witch had in the ballroom. But there was a label on this one. Formula 86, it said, Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Then it said, this bottle contains 500 doses. Eureka! I had done it! I felt tremendously pleased with myself. 3 frogs came hopping out from under the bed. They crouched on the carpet, staring at me with large black eyes. I stared back at them. Those huge eyes were the saddest things I had ever seen. It suddenly occurred to me that almost certainly once upon a time, they had been children, those frogs. I stood there clutching the bottle, staring at the frogs. The Grand High Witch had to have gotten a hold of them. "Who are you?" I asked them. But at that exact moment, I heard a key turning in the lock of the door, and the door burst open, and the Grand High Witch herself swept into the room. The frogs jumped underneath the bed again, in one quick hop. I darted after them, still clutching the bottle, and I ran back against the wall and squeezed in behind one of the bedposts. I heard feet walking on the carpet. I peeped round the bedpost, and the 3 frogs were clustered together under the middle of the bed. Frogs cannot hide like mice. They cannot run like mice either. All they can do, poor things, is hop about rather clumsily. Suddenly the Grand High Witch's face came into view, peering under the bed. I hid back behind the bedpost. "So there you are, my little froggies," I heard her saying. "You can stay where you are until I go to bed tonight. Then I shall throw you out of the window, and the seagulls can have you for supper." Suddenly, very loud and clear, there came the sound of my grandmother's voice through the open balcony door. "Hurry up, my darling. Do hurry up. You'd better come out quickly." "Who is this calling?" snapped the Grand High Witch. I peeped around the bedpost again and saw her walking across the carpet to the balcony door. "Who is this on my balcony? Who is it who dares to trespass on my balcony?" She went through the door onto the balcony itself. "What is this knitting wool hanging down here?" I heard her saying. "Oh, hello," came my grandmother's voice. "I just dropped my knitting over the balcony by mistake, but it's all right. I've got hold of one end of it. I could pull it up myself. Thank you all the same." I marveled at how calm her voice was. "Who were you talking to just now? Who were you telling to hurry up and come out quickly?" snapped the Grand High Witch. "I was talking to my little grandson. He's been in the bathroom for hours, and it's time he came out. He sits in there reading books and forgets completely where he is. Do you have any children, my dear?" "I most certainly do not," shouted the Grand High Witch, and she came quickly back into the bedroom, slamming the balcony door behind her. I was trapped. I was cooked. My escape route was closed. And we're going to pause there. So our narrator managed to come up with a plan. He's going to try and turn the witches themselves into mice. But once he's stolen this bottle, the Grand High Witch came back at a very poor time, and he is now trapped in the room with the Grand High Witch. If you want to hear what happens, you'll have to join us for our next part of The Witches. Bye.